Okay, let's do worksheet 3, problem number 5. So it reads 4,500 joules are released from ice, so I know I'm dealing with water, as it cools from -5 to -45. What is the mass of the ice? All right, so the first thing that you want to do is do a graph because that'll tell you what equations and how many equations you're going to need of each. So what you always want to do is you start with your temperature of what you're starting with, which is in this case -5. And I am cooling it down to -45, so it's going to go down. So now because I know it's water, I have to ask myself, does it go through 0 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Celsius on this graph? And in this case, it does not. If it did, it would flatline at those spots. But because it does not, it is just a straight line from -5 to -45. What that means is that I am going to be using one equation, and because it is angled downwards, meaning there's a temperature change, I know I'm going to be using Q equals MC delta T, and I'm only going to have to use it once. All right, so 4,500 joules. Now I'm going to start labeling. This is my Q. This is my delta T. Okay, and then I know my C because that's a constant. All right, so let's start plugging and chugging in this. So we have 4,500 joules. That equals my mass, which I do not know, times my C, which for ice, because I know I'm in ice, which is the solid form of water, is 2.11 joules per gram degree Celsius. And I have to do my delta T, which is final, minus initial. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of simplify it a little bit. So I'm going to drop the units to make it a little bit easier to understand everything. So it's 2.11, and then -45 minus a -5. I know that looks really bad. That is a negative 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, change. All right, so now I'm going to do the 2.11 times -40, and I get negative 84.4. Oh my goodness, I forgot. It is released. By it saying released, it is a negative 4,500 and a negative 4,500. Okay, and if you forgot that, something will come up, and that's what actually reminded me of this. I was like, oh crap, what's going to happen? But then when you look at it, it actually makes sense. Okay, so I forgot that I should do negative 45 because it's releasing it. So negative 4,500 divided by 84.4 is 53. So my mass is 53 point, and I'm getting 318, and that would be grams. Now, because of these, it's 2 sig figs, 2 sig figs, 2 sig figs. So rounded, that's where we get the 53 grams because of the 2 sig figs. Now, what I was talking about with that negative and it being like, oh, wait, was it negative or was it positive? Why would I do negative? Well, when I get originally, if I didn't have that, my final minus my initial times my mass and all that other stuff, I would get negative 84.4 equals 4,500. So when I would divide, I would get a negative mass. And that's physically impossible to have a negative amount of substances. Amount of stuff. And so that's why it was like, oh, bing, 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 bing. It went off in my head that it was doing that. Now, we went from, we went down in our own amount of energy, so it had to release it, which means that this is an exothermic process.